And when those sorts of decisions get made, how do you sort of think about, or how do you work in the sort of uncertainty we're seeing going forward? Because I always figure that one of the reasons they did it the way they did in the 90s is that you could build on what you'd done 3 or 4 years ago. And a lot of the budget deals we see, it's a lot of caps, it's a lot of GDP. Medicare spending will not expand beyond GDP plus 1, or in the Ryan budget, inflation. So what sort of processes do you build in such that 3 or 4 or 5 years after you've cut your big deal, when you've seen a little bit of how it's going, how do you set it up such that you're implementing it?
You can't, I mean, ultimately, I think that what is, the process is going to be that the bond market is not going to tolerate us indefinitely running deficits, and like people are going to start, I fear that we're going to get to a point where the only mechanism we have is the bond market. And that's because, you can't commit future Congresses to doing something. You can try, you can like dress it up, but in fact, all of the things that we've tried with things like Graham-Rodman-Hollings and so forth, ultimately, they can go and unpass the law, and you can't stop them. So unless you can do a constitutional balanced budget amendment, which I'm not advocating, but unless you can do something that is really going to get the Supreme Court in there to say, like, no, guys, you're done. I'm cutting you off. The credit card does not clear anymore. You can't build in a mechanism that really makes it that hard. They can always go back and amend it, your law pretty easily, if they want to. And so what you want to do is create a situation where people can see that they're better off not changing it. But that's really difficult to do. And I think especially, I think the last thing I would say is that the choices we're making, unlike in 90 and 93, which I think are really the two big, and to some extent the 86 tax simplification, are the 3 big kind of moments in budget history in the last 25, 30 years. The choices are a lot harder now. We can't kick the can down the road anymore. I mean, the Greenspan Commission could say we raise taxes, we do this, but it's sort of a one-trick pony. We can't keep doing it. We've gotten to the point where the bills are coming due, and we can't, all of the budget deals in the 90s were happening in the context of, you know what, we're just not gonna do Medicare and Social Security, it's not for 15 years, it's, we'll deal with it then. And we're at then. So the choices are harder. It's gonna make them harder to agree on. It is going to be a big obstacle to getting this done. Not just the partisanship of Congress and all the other things, but because they're really getting to the point where you gotta say, like, I know, Grandma, you wanted that MRI, you can't have it. Or I know that you thought that you were only gonna get taxed at 35%, but sorry, it's 45%. And those are really tough choices, and they mean actual pain, serious pain, for a lot of people who vote. And there's no way around that anymore.
So I think with that, we're out of time. I'd like to thank my co-panels here and all of you for coming. And hopefully, someone will be listening, and this will all be solved soon. So next year we can have this on global warming or something.
Yeah, no questions, David.